Good morning. And for those of you wondering, yes, I always wear pink on Wednesdays.
Woo!
With that, I'm Andrew, she's Rachel, and over the next 20 minutes, we're going to give you guys the 5 ways that you can leverage AI right now to optimize every customer experience. Now, Rachel and I have both been in the AI decisioning customer engagement space for the better part of the last decade. And so we're sitting around swapping old stories, getting ready for today, and I hit her with this. Now, this comes from some old mentors of mine, so Matt, Vince, if you guys are out there watching, shout out to you. But honestly, when I got into AI, this is what we were afraid of, right? That the machine is going to go rogue and take over the world. Well, maybe not that extreme, but honestly, the thought of turning things over to the machine was, and really still is, a little bit worrisome.
Oh, so we took a poll. I think we need a slide change. There we go. So we wanted to find out where you guys were at in your AI journey. So prior to Think Summit, we took a poll, and about a quarter of you are ready to implement. You're actively implementing, kudos to you. While a little more than half of you are still curious about AI, you're in that research stage. And then another quarter needs some reassurance, which is what we're here to provide. So I'd say you're all in the right place.
Yes, you definitely are. But honestly, results like this perhaps aren't surprising when you consider the fact that 64% of marketers out there, 64%, still believe that they can do better than the machine. But here's the problem. The problem is when you ask customers what they think about the experiences that they're getting from brands, 2 out of every 3 is going to tell you they simply don't think that we care about their needs.
And what this tells us is that today's marketing is broken. I bet the majority of retailers, or the reason why marketers think that they can make selections better than a machine, is because they've yet to interact with a solution that allows them to maintain various degrees of control, which is what we're here to show you.
Exactly.
And by doing so, we have to think again. Has anyone read this book by Adam Grant? Show of hands? All right, a few of you. So he opens the book with this quote, that progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. And we're all here to make progress, right? Besides the free swag and the after party. So if we want to make progress, we have to change our minds. Easy enough. Changing our minds is difficult. And why is that? Because we often prefer the ease of hanging onto old views over the difficulty of grappling with new ones. Cognitive laziness, he calls it. Ouch. So how do we overcome that? By unlearning and rethinking. So over the next 20 minutes, that's exactly what we're going to show you how to do, highlighting 5 key ways that you can leverage AI to transform your overall program without losing control.
As we begin our rethinking journey, this is where we need to start. So every time that we engage a customer, we need to answer these 2 questions. Who should we talk to, and what should we talk about? And I say that very specifically, because a lot of times, us as brands, we have these things backwards, but let me give you an example. So the way that this has worked for years, right, marketers, people like me, whenever we get a brief from one of our stakeholders, and it's our job to go sell that thing, well, here's what we do, right? We run off and we gather some data and we do some analysis. And one way or another, we end up creating a segment using things like business rules to say, all right, just give me people based on demographics or maybe where they live and they haven't purchased in a while and they're not super loyal. And then if I'm really advanced, at the end here, I bring in some AI to say, all right, out of everybody that's left, just give me the people with the propensity to click above 2.5%. And then once I had my segment, what would I do? Well, launch the campaign, right? Send this thing out the door and blast literally everybody in this group all at the same time, all with the same message. Now, maybe I would do something like first name personalization, but at the end of the day, here's the problem. The problem is that the average campaign in any market generates between a 1% and 2% response rate. So think about that for a minute. That means 99 out of every 100 people we talk to are completely ignoring everything we have to say. So if we're going to fix it, we need to change the way that we think about our customers and the way that we go to market. So rather than starting with a product and trying to figure out who all we can push that thing to, we need to start with a person like Bob or James or Jill, or in this case, Mary, and read their context in the moment and ask ourselves, what's the right thing to do for them? When we're on the right side of this, that's the customer first, right? That's the human first approach. And while it's really easy for someone like me to come up here and say that, actually executing that isn't so easy. So Rachel, how can these folks leverage AI to do just that?
Yeah, so in order to determine what we're going to send, there are 3 key areas critical to understanding about each customer. The first is product facets. So the model will take into account all of the engagement, transaction, and profile data and map the ideal version of each customer. And this becomes the foundation for purposeful discovery throughout your product catalog. Next is promotional affinity. Consider this a promotional motivation scale, understanding which customers need more or less promotions, and understanding how much you need to rely on them in order to drive a conversion. And third is customer quality, which is looking at all the factors contributing to customer lifetime value and where customers are at within the life cycle with your brand. This is ensuring that we're balancing short versus long term, engagement versus selling, as well as nurturing to a higher AOV versus a one-off trivial sale. And all of this informs the creative decisioning, the frequency, and other models that govern when and what gets sent to each customer individually. So let's look at an example. The AI is going to map all of your products and how they relate to one another in this 3-dimensional space. And then it's going to map each customer into that space as well. So let's take this pink cloud, for example. That's Nicole, who primarily spends a lot of time purchasing and engaging with beauty and kids content. But rather than reinforce something that we already know, we have a great opportunity to increase her AOV and UPT, units per transaction, by graduating her into the women's category. And that's exactly what we did in today's email. And the model is doing this for all of your customers, right? So take Carlos here, who primarily shops in men's. But unlike Nicole, the model's objective for him today is reinforcement. So while we have a long-term goal of graduating him into the home category, today we're giving him a taste of something he already enjoys.
So, Rachel, I'm with you.
Yep.
But to quote my good friend Nicki Minaj here, what about me? Like, in this world where the AI is deciding what content to show somebody, like, what role does the marketer play?
So the marketer still has control. So take for financial services, for example. You can't sell a credit card to a customer under the age of 18. So we'll ensure that's in the audience criteria and content eligibility. Or for our retail and travel folks, maybe you have a loyalty offer that only applies to a certain segment. We'll make sure that's taken into consideration as well. Or for our subscription-based brands, perhaps a customer has missed a bill. And so we don't want to send them any marketing communication until that is resolved. And so again, this is all reliant on the data that you have access to as marketers and how you want to utilize this within your audience selection.
And that makes sense, right? So in this world, it's our job as marketers to act with empathy, right? We need to narrow the list of options that the AI can decide between, ruling out things that either don't make sense for the customer or don't make sense for our business. And then once we've narrowed that list, then we unleash the AI to do its thing. But let me let you guys in on a little secret here. Figuring out what we're going to do is only half the battle, right? It's only half the equation. Figuring out how we're going to do that is just as important. But let me give you an example. So if we go in the Wayback Machine, this is how we used to think about email, right? One entity, coded up, locked in. But I'd be willing to bet nobody in the room thinks about email like this anymore, because we've moved on and we moved into this world of modular content. In other words, what email really is a series of smaller experiences, each of which we get the chance to populate and customize for every one of our customers. So the question becomes, okay, if I have all of these different component parts, how in the world do I actually know which content to put in each one?
So this is another area where AI can completely transform our approach. And so we'll start with what I talked about earlier, product facets, determining what a customer likes as well as their potential, in addition to promotional affinity and customer quality that further determine the objectives we have for each customer. Then we layer in creative decisioning. So now we're selecting the right piece of content that adheres to those objectives. And these are only 6 examples on the screen, but imagine you have a library of content with 50 or 100 different heroes in your library that the AI is deciding between. And this isn't just for the hero space. This could be for all the blocks within the email. And not only that, the model is beginning to understand the interactivity between these zones over time and how certain content can impact the overall performance. So here's a look at tomorrow's 6 a.m. send, where everyone is getting something unique. We have decoupled campaign from creative. We have hundreds of thousands of versions of email going out on any given day. But again, it's not just all or nothing AI. So the marketer has the ability to, again, select down to the module level which zones will be AI-driven, which will be static and sent to everyone, or which will be personalized but maybe powered by business rules or waterfall logic. So there's still a lot of marketer control within this paradigm.
Yeah, and like you were saying, it's not just where and when we're going to leverage AI. Marketers still need to provide the guardrails, right? Provide all of those constraints for the AI to operate within. Like, good example, it's still incumbent upon us as marketers to provide all of those different creative variations that you were just talking about. After all, the AI can't pick something to send if it doesn't exist. Well, at least not yet anyway. But it's also our job to define what we call prohibitive pairings, and this is key. But this is things like saying, hey, if we show brand X up in the hero, then we got to suppress everything from brand Y because we can't put those two things together. And in this world, even though AI can, and honestly should, auto-generate subject lines for us, we still need to tell the machine what to base that off of. So good example is, let's say we have an email going out, and it's got a huge promo banner up in the hero. But we actually don't think that's going to drive a ton of opens, right? That's for clicks and conversions down the road. We can tell the machine, all right, let's base this subject line on the first content block instead, because we think that's going to be more relevant for this person. But OK, so now that we know who we're talking to, what we're talking to them about, and how we're going to do it, the third question becomes, when should we send this thing? And Rachel, I know in talking before this is sort of the bane of your existence in Patch Life, right?
Oh, yes. So, does this look familiar to everyone? We all have some version of this, right? An email calendar where we're taking in merchant requests or requests from other business units and trying to place these amongst the calendar for the month. More things to say than time or space to say them. When more often than not, it looks like this. My team at Neiman's would play Tetris in placing these amongst the calendar, taking into account all of the additional requests to get, not to mention the inevitable last-minute requests for photography retouches or product that hasn't hit the site yet. So one thing moves, then we move another, and all day long we're just remixing the calendar like we're DJs. Let me let you in on a little awakening I had during my time at Neiman's, that the majority of the calendar is arbitrary. And how do I know that? Because my team selected these dates. Men's spring fashion, Monday at 6 a.m. Women's blouses, Tuesday afternoon. Are these the only times this content can go out? Besides the waste and time and effort of managing this, it wasn't even a great customer experience. Think back to what Andrew said at the beginning, a 1% to 2% response rate on average, so the majority of customers are missing out on this email never to be sent again. Huge missed opportunity.
And so if we're going to capture that opportunity, here's how it's got to work, right? So rather than playing Tetris or being a DJ and trying to figure out 1 or 2 arbitrary times a day to send, instead we can flip that on its head and leverage AI to predict the best time to engage with every customer. So rather than a distribution that looks like this, we have one that looks like this instead. And what's key about that is that we can do this based on someone's likelihood to convert. So a lot of times when you hear people out there talking about send time optimization, it's just about increasing clicks. Like we've always said, clicks are cool. Like they are, and they matter to us as marketers. But conversions are what drive business results. And you can see some of those results a retailer's experience, and this is just in 1 month alone by making this switch. But Rachel, again, it's not all about AI. So what role does the marketer play here?
Exactly. There are more guardrails we can put in place. So say you have inventory that typically hits around 4:30 in the morning. You can tell the system, don't send anything until after then because product won't be on the site. Or maybe your competitor always sends their batch email at 5 p.m. every evening. So you can tell the system, hey, make sure to send everything before then so we beat them to the inbox.
Yeah, and I think those examples make a ton of sense. But related to when we're going to send this is point number 4. And that's how frequently are we going to engage? And the question is, like, why does frequency matter? Well, it matters because the number one reason why customers opt out of our marketing program, the number one reason, is too many communications. Let's break this down. So when it comes to frequency, there's really 2 elements of this. And it's our jobs as marketers to define both of these things. So the first is what we call engagement frequency rules. And these are really designed to help protect our business because, honestly, every message that goes out the door, not only does it cost us money, but it also presents an opportunity for someone to churn. So what we want to do is tell the AI things like, hey, don't send somebody more than 3 messages in a day, but not more than 21 a week, and not more than 60 within a given month. Now, on the flip side of that, we have what we call creative reuse rules. And if you think about like the frequency caps as really being geared to help our business, these are really suited to protect our customers. And what we can do is tell the AI, hey, if you show somebody this creative in the hero 3 times and they still don't engage, even if you think it's the best thing in the world for them, it's not, right? It's time to move on and try something else. Or even if they do engage, we can limit that reuse based upon how far they get in their purchase journey. That way, we're not continuing to hammer someone with content when it's no longer relevant, and we've got to pivot our strategy to match. But all right, so now we have these rules in place. Rachel, what's the AI do from here?
All right, so we're going to run a test of different volumes against your business as usual. We'll create some audiences that will receive a little bit more and some that will receive a little bit less. And so we'll start with this 10% increase by 10% group, right? So not everyone in this group is going to increase by 10%, but you could. Let's take Jake here, for example. So we ran a test of different frequencies around this 10% mark, comparing his engagement with the changes in volume. And we see that the optimal number of emails for him is actually 17 sends per week. He's pretty loyal, huh? But let's take Erica. She looks a little different. So in her testing, we saw that sending her more email actually hurts us. BAU performed best. She's actually someone we want to test sending less to. So perhaps the model will identify that 7 or 10 emails a week is best for her. And then you end up with a distribution that looks like this, where everyone is getting the right amount of content for them at that right point in time.
Yeah, and I think that's key, so let me play that back to you. So basically the way that AI works is it takes your BAU, says, all right, let's test sending up to a little bit more, let's test sending a little bit less, and compare the results, and then optimize for the KPIs that matter to us, whether that's clicks, conversions, AOV, and then once we find that, we can use that for every customer and develop a volume like this. Is that fair?
Exactly.
And that's what's key, guys. This is how you're going to keep engaging customers, keeping them wanting more without burning them out. But all right, so to this point, everything we've talked about is just about getting the message out the door. But we all know that our jobs as marketers, it doesn't stop there, right? It's about finding new ways, innovative ways to improve over time. And that brings us to point number 5. How can we leverage AI to optimize our programs going forward? So let me start by saying this. Throughout the presentation today, we've talked about AI literally the entire time. But that's a pretty broad term, right? And there's sort of 2 approaches here. So on the left, you have predictive analytics. Now, these are models that are created by data scientists, right, in a tool like SAS or SPSS or R or Python or what have you. And they are tremendously powerful, don't get me wrong. But the problem is that they're static, right, meaning they can't update themselves based on customer responses. So it becomes really, really hard to scale. Now, on the flip side, you have machine learning models. And these are the ones that are self-optimizing, right? So they're constantly learning, constantly adapting with every customer response so we can figure out what's working and what's not. But here's the key. Even though that machine learning models are going to self-optimize, they're limited based upon the number of creative inputs that the marketer gives us. So when we think about optimization, this is where marketers shine in this world because they're freed up to do these higher level, these more strategic, more innovative initiatives, like figuring out what content to load into the hopper. So, Rachel, how does somebody do that? How do we figure out what content we need to create?
So of all the insights we can provide, this is one of my favorites. So consider this the portfolio distribution of your creative library, right? We're looking at the supply and demand of the percent of creatives relative to the percent of sends. And in this case, you can see that men's content is really resonating with your audience. It's something we should create more of. So let's redistribute our creative resources to create more men's and less, you guessed it, kids content. These are really valuable insights that you can share with your creative and merchant partners to analyze. Additionally, though, we can go a step further and look at the model effectiveness of each creative, one of our proprietary metrics. So in this case, everyday denim is performing better. But we can drill down a step further, right? Because this is a composite metric that's looking at the overall effectiveness of a variety of KPIs. So we can see that made to measure is actually being brought down by its subject line, right? The open effectiveness of that email. And keep in mind that made to measure subject line is only populating in the inbox when made to measure is in the hero, or however the marketer has designed this upon setup.
And honestly, guys, like these types of AI-driven insights, when I was a marketer, I would have done really, really bad things to get access to this. Like this would have made my life so much better. But all right, we've covered a lot here in the last 20 minutes. But if I give you guys nothing else from today's presentation, hopefully nobody in the room feels like this anymore.
Yeah, so hopefully it feels like this, marketer and machine. So hopefully you guys are ready to rethink your email program with DaVinci. I encourage you to scan the QR code to learn more, to request a demo, and better yet, come see us back there at the DV demo bar.
Yes, please do come see us. We are more than happy to keep these conversations going. And this isn't it, right? We have a lot more great AI content queued up for you guys. So make sure to be right back here tomorrow for our product keynote. You're not going to want to miss that. So on behalf of Rachel, just wanted to say thank you and have a great day one here at Think Summit.